Good afternoon, folks. You're watching the SHNN, or the Shabd News Network. I'm your host, yours truly, Shabd. And in light of the current ICU protests in Los Angeles, United States, I like to be focusing on the current social issue of illegal immigration in the United States. According to my reports, illegal immigration in the United States dates back all the way to the 17th century. And currently there are 10.5 to 11 million illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants in the United States currently, right now. Most originating from either Mexico, Central America, or Asia. Today on this broadcast, I'd like to be sharing the opinions of three experts I've brought on. One being anthropologist, sociologist, and a psychologist. The anthropologist we have brought on today is the one and only Shabd. We'll cut to you, Shabd, right now.
Thank you, Shabd. It's me. For those who don't know me, it's me, Shabd, famous anthropologist, world-renowned, and also a New York Times best-selling author. So, when it comes to the anthropology of illegal immigration in the United States, I like to look at the reasons, the migration patterns, and the reasons for movement. So when it comes to Mexico, one of the peak periods that we saw of migration, of illegal migration, was, according to my reports, from 1995 to 2007, with a peak of 12.2 million in 2007 coming from Mexico and Central America. A few of the key factors from this are the demand for lower wage labor due to a strong U.S. economy at the time, and the weak enforcement of employment sanctions back then, and also NAFTA, which was the North American Free Trade Agreement signed between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, which had massive effects with Mexico, as it flooded the Mexican market with cheap U.S. agricultural goods, as there was no tariffs on those agricultural goods, which made for many Mexican farmers to lose their jobs because there wasn't much demand for homegrown crops at the time, because of those cheap U.S. agricultural goods that were getting imported at this point, which created a demand for low skill jobs, which can be low wage, which essentially forced people to migrate from Mexico all to the United States, which can be tied to the agricultural culture in Mexico, as Mexico at one point were very heavily dependent on their local homegrown agriculture due to tariffs and the heavy cost of importing. But now, because of NAFTA, well, before this pre-Trump era, a lot of farmers lost their jobs, causing the big influx of illegal immigration that I talked about before. As an anthropologist, I'm also very concerned about human rights, and there have been times where I feel human rights have been very violated, and I'm very against the policies that the United States has set up, and I feel like we have a very big immigration crisis, as policies right now, they promote family separation. There have been many unaccompanied minors, undocumented minors, but and out of the U.S. population, 8 million of them, 8 million illegal immigrants are currently in the workforce right now working. So the people that are boosting your economy, you are essentially causing them to be separated from their families, detaining them, which has now sparked, due to the inhumaneness of the detainment, sparked the protests in Los Angeles, and has created many challenges for these undocumented people that are immigrating. If it were not for Pilar v. Doe, a case that took place in 1982, which gave undocumented children access to public schools, it would have been even worse. Because now a child who has been separated from his family due to these inhumane policies is now by himself, not going to school. Imagine how that would be. At least at the very minimum, they are in school. The policies are very inhumane. And also another example I like to be using is the Texas National Guard is shooting pepper ball, which are non-lethal rounds, to deter immigrants at the border. The state says the guards have been trained not to aim directly at people, but migrants have told us that they've been shot with rounds, which leave bruises and disperse a chemical irritant, which further goes to show the crisis that we are currently facing with immigration and how inhumane the policies are in the United States at the current moment. And also, we'll be cutting to a video footage of these pepper balls being shot at illegal immigrants. The footage is quite sensitive. Please cut to the footage.
After a long journey, finally made it to America. These damn Mexicans, I was ruining my country.
Took an extra dose on geeking. Took an extra dose of, I can't feel my legs, my arm. Took too much on, I can't feel my face. Took too much on geeking. I took too much on geeking. I took too much on geeking.
Anyway, thank you, Shabd, for having me. Back to you now.
Thank you, Shabd, for having me. This is Shabd, a world-renowned sociologist, and I'm here to talk about illegal immigration. I'm going to be talking about how socioeconomics is tied into illegal immigration in the United States. As my colleague and close friend, Shabd said, one of the key factors for migration to the United States was the demand for low-wage labor due to a strong and booming U.S. economy at that time. This can be linked to the exponential growth of capitalism in the United States after the defeat of the Soviet Union. And there's also weak enforcement of employer sanctions, as there was less sanctions for human rights back in that time. And as migrant workers have, due to a pretty unjust system, migrant workers have few rights, which can also be linked to the growth of capitalism, as it creates a disposable workforce due to the migrant workers having few legal rights. As I mentioned before, they're easy to hire and replace. There's many migrant workers looking for jobs. Even if they're low wage, they do what they can. And also that makes them less likely to unionize because they found a job in the first place, and they're usually content with that, even though they don't know that they are deserving of much, much more. And due to how how illegal or undocumented migrants are treated in society today. This also suppresses wages, as large pools of undocumented workers keep wages low for everyone in low-scale sectors, which helps this helps control inflation and boost corporate margins, which increase the wealth gap as the rich get richer and the poor suffer. So for those who don't know, socioeconomics study how economic activity affects and is shaped by social processes. with low-wage labor, it keeps undocumented immigrants in the lower class and people who work in lower skill sectors, as they often work with long hours with low pay, and less chance for upwards mobility. And without legal status, they face limited access to education, benefits, and safe housing, which will be talked about later by somebody else that will be coming on to this broadcast. And this traps them in one of the lowest economic tiers. And also, capitalism benefits from socioeconomic stratification, as capitalist economies need cheap labor base to support high profit industries. Like it explains how, which that will explain how these workers are structurally excluded from upwards movement while they still provide base for what the company offers, which creates social inequality and also increases the wealth gap, not just between illegal migrants and let's say the owners of the companies, but us in general, because these people are paying much less to these workers while they still make the same amount of money. Well, they actually make more money from having more workers with less pay, which increases the amount of money they make compared to a regular average human. Social economics help us understand who gains here and who loses. So in summary, the demand for low wage labor fuels the growth of capitalism in our country. As I said before, the rich get richer and the poor suffer. Thank you, Shabd, for having me. This is Scrub Hans out.
Thank you, Scrub Hans, for your insightful bit. And now we move into Shabby Hands, world-renowned psychologist, on his takes on illegal immigration in the United States. Hello, everybody. World-renowned psychologist, Shabby Hands here. And today I'm going to be talking about mental health issues within migrants, with undocumented migrants. So there's a lot of discrimination and stigma surrounding migrants, as people are often more racist towards migrants. And using stats from the National Library of Medicine, some studies showed that 23% of participants met the criteria of a disorder, and the most prevalent were major depressive disorders, panic disorders, and generalized anxiety disorders. And 4% of those participants met the criteria for a substance use disorder. And the conclusion gone from the study is that undocumented Mexican immigrants are an at-risk population for mental disorders, particularly depression and anxiety disorders. So that's what I'll be talking about. I'll be talking about how mental health is much more prevalent in undocumented migrants, mental health issues, as they face relating that to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the physiological needs or the psychological needs are rarely ever met, as most migrants face through food insecurity, unstable housing, and exhausting labor, which causes long-term stress. The constant fighting to meet basic needs can lead to a lot of different disorders, as mentioned before. They don't fulfill their safety needs, as most of them live in fear of deportation, the ICE raids, or being separated from their family. As these are just for adults, as there are a lot of undocumented children which have been separated from their families as well. Their need of love and belonging aren't met either, as they usually feel socially rejected and shamed about their legal status, and they usually feel a disconnection from their broader community. And go back to safety needs, they usually feel a distrust towards authority, and Yeah, so in summary, their undocumented status can bring legal and emotional instability, and they're not really able to fulfill the Maslow's hierarchy of needs that most people that can give major effects mentally if aren't fulfilled. And yeah, that's practically all I have to say about the psychological effects of psychological effects on undocumented immigrants. Thank you. Thank you, Shabd. This is Shabby Hands out.
Thank you, everybody, for your insightfulness on your topic. Thank you, Shabby Hands. Thank you, Scrub Hands. And thank you, Shabd Hands. Shabby Hands, Scrub Hands, and Shabd Hands on your insights. And thank you for what you've contributed to the SHNN, the Shabd Hands News Network. And that's it. That's all it will be for today, folks. Tomorrow in Toronto, we're expected to hit a high of 23 degrees. Good weather this weekend, folks. Better want to stay outside. And yeah, that would be it for today's broadcast, and cutting to the ad roll. Thank you.